Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for coming. My name's Cathy Skelly. Just before we kind of get going, we've just got some housekeeping stuff. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if there is one, don't dash, but, go in an orderly fashion to where those green things are. But also, if you've got your phone, obviously we want you to be kind of posting stuff throughout the event, but can you put your phone on silent, please, especially while the panels are on. And if you are posting, can you use the hashtag #WriteTheFuture? That'd be great. So this event's being brought to you today by the Liverpool City Region Music Board. So what's that? Well, apart from being a mouthful, and I had to practice that loads, the LCR board was set up in December 2018 as an independent-led initiative supported by the Combined Authority and Liverpool City Council. And it's at this point that I'm going to specifically name check, and should be dead embarrassed, Sarah Lovell of the Combined Authority and Kevin McManus, who hasn't made it down yet, who continue to work tirelessly to ensure that the region's music and tech sector stay on the political agenda, which is just really important work. So the Music Board is made up of representatives from across the sector, including artists, industry practitioners, creative technology businesses, education and skills providers, large and smaller venues, and some key national partners, including the likes of PRS, Musicians Union, and the Black Music Action Group. What this amounts to is a powerful chorus of diverse voices with a shared passion to lobby, advocate for, and support equality and inclusion, and most importantly, the continued growth of our internationally revered music sector. So, since 2018, just a kind of few highlights, the board has secured funding to establish a dedicated music office, which not only has delivered lifeline support to businesses during the pandemic through its Music Support Fund, but continues to offer specialist information and advice and guidance, provide talent development and skills support to individuals and businesses and pupils across the city region, so not just in Liverpool, and significantly has played an integral role in the development and launch of the Black Music Action Group Manifesto. And we're just at the beginning of that journey. There's loads more to do, and we want you to help us do it. So, on to today. Those who know me, and some of you do, some of you don't, know that I'm absolutely fascinated by what happens when the worlds of music, film, and art align with the absolute magic of technologies to create realities that in some cases are literally out of this world. So for me today, this is a personal highlight. So on behalf of the Music Board, all of the Music Board, I'd like to thank all of our panellists, who you'll see in a bit when I get off, and all of the participants who've given their time today free of charge, including the guys from Meta, who, by the way, the round's on them. They bought the drinks for later. But last and not least, I think we all know the phrase, or something like it. Behind every great event is a great woman. Loads of women on show today. Brilliant display of talent. But in this case, the biggest thanks goes to Hayley Downey, who's probably hiding somewhere, who's actually put all the hard work into making this happen today. So thanks, Hayley. So I'll get off now because I know my voice is grating. And get your MacBooks at the ready. That's an old person saying that, isn't it? And I'd like to hand you over to our guests from Meta. So Natalie Kelly, who's the Global Client Solutions Manager with Meta for our first panel session. Thanks, everybody. You'll see me in a bit.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a really exciting panel where we're going to talk about the brilliant basics in digital music marketing all the way to the new opportunities of the metaverse, AR, VR and AI. My name's Natalie and I'm a global client solutions manager at Meta for music and film, and I have a wonderful lineup of women, 2 of them from Meta and 1 from Freebeat. So we have Sophie, Ali and Jane with me today. I would love for you all to give a bit of a brief overview of your role day to day, and I'm going to go with you first, Sophie.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sophie. I work at 3Beat, which is a Liverpool-based record label that has a joint venture with Universal UK. I am marketing manager there, so deal with all things digital, but also, when needed, traditional marketing and guerrilla marketing as well.
Hi, I'm Ali. I work at Meta in Creative Shop. I'm production lead, but specialise mostly in a lot of the emerging technologies, so AR, VR, AI, and anything else that's going to come our way, I think, in the next couple of years.
All of it.
All of it.
I'm Jane. I am a creative strategist in Creative Shop, and I mainly look after music and film across the UK and EMEA.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask you first, what are some of your favourite campaigns that you've worked on in music?
Shall I go first?
You go first, Sophie.
I think obviously 3Beat has quite a big dance background. So when I first started, it was mostly dance music. But I think of recent, last year, we worked on a big campaign called Yonasu, and the track was called Black Magic. And it was just a really interesting campaign, because I think dance producers don't tend to be like quite open on socials, whereas he's the complete opposite to that. So we had a lot we could do, and we did lots of TikTok campaigns with him, to the point where we got it trending in the UK as well. And then he got a big Love Island sync. So it was just interesting from a dance perspective to see someone really go in on it. That was a good campaign for me.
Ali, do you want to go next?
Yeah, so one of the first projects I did with Meta when I joined actually was an AR filter for the launch of Kylie's new album, Disco Spirit. And it was just based on creating a 3D model of Kylie that you could interact with wherever you were. So you would download the filter in your bedroom and dance with her. And we encouraged fans to share this across Instagram. It was very well received. We even have videos of Kylie interacting with her own filter, which was great. And we've been nominated for a Webby for that. So that was quite cool.
Amazing.
I would want to share an AI project that I'm working on, because it's super exciting. It's AI, which I think is really interesting for musicians, but it's not out yet.
Oh, you're not
In
allowed.
case anyone doesn't know, what does AI stand for?
Artificial intelligence. So I think there's a really interesting aspect where you can almost use an AI model as a producer. So you can feed it if you imagine you could feed it everything Madonna had ever made in her career, and then anything that it would spit out would technically be Madonna's. Like it's grown up on Madonna, you fed it Madonna, and it poops Madonna. Something like that. But there's been a lot of exploration that we have done as a team through AR, and I think my favorite project that I can share was an AR effect that we made with Ant, who's over there at the back, from Orgit. But it was an effect for Liam Payne's. I think the effect was potentially better than the single. But we gamified, his music video was about a kind of games arcade, and we gamified the AR effect so that in playing the game and increasing your playtime in the levels, it was almost like increasing the number of times you heard the hook of the song. So it was mimicking radio plays, in that people didn't realize that they were hearing the hook over and over and over again. And so then when they heard the song, they obviously recognized it and thought, oh, I really like that. I've heard it so many times before. So that was my favorite.
Amazing. So in my role, a lot of it is about bringing the labels together with the best creative minds at Meta, in my opinion. And the theme of collaboration is going to come up a lot today. So how would you say, what do you love about collaboration? I'm going to start with you, Sophie, as of course you have to work with managers and the
Yeah.
and the artists.
I think with my role, we kind of have to touch base with pretty much anyone. So you have your managers, but also we like to speak to artists direct. Sometimes it's just easier from a communication point of view. We also speak to Universal Music as well. And I think the biggest thing for me is just how many ideas you can come up with and like bounce off each other and to create this one idea that everyone is just really sold on. For me, like collaboration in that sense to get the best idea possible is that's the thing for me.
Yeah, I would agree, because I think we have found as a team, Natalie being a third of the team, that when you're working directly with the artist, the creative vision that you can have around the marketing is, and obviously that's a luxury, not all artists want to be involved, but I think because there is such a huge stake in the creative vision that they have for the music that they've created, you need to be able to talk to them like on an equal playing field to sort of say, okay, that's your vision, this is how I think we could articulate your vision. So I think collaborating with as open as you can be with everyone in the team, so that there's no hierarchy necessarily.
I would agree. But producers as well, I think, are always super important. And, for me, I guess as a producer, working with people with different skill sets as well. So, I get to work with, because my work is cross-industry based, I don't just work in the music industry, I work more with technologies that delve into different industries. It's just super fascinating for me to see how people's brains work, because I'm very sort of process and production driven, but then I work with lots of creatives whose ideas I would never be able to come up with. And then also the tech minds that I work with as well. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's quite hard to try and speak to everyone's different languages and bring it all together for the best outcome. So on that, Ali, there's a huge buzz around Web3, the metaverse, and all of the things that it brings. What do you think is the biggest opportunity and perhaps any challenges that come with all of this?
Yeah, I think, it's very easy for a lot of, as a producer in Creative Shop, I support around 80 to 90 strategists who all support different brands on different verticals. And I think, the metaverse is something that is kind of the hot topic at the moment. And it's very easy for brands to come and say, we want to be part of that. But I think the one question that we need to always ask our clients and our brands is why. Why do they want to do it? What do they understand about what it means? I think there are many opportunities, but I think we need to make sure that the brands and the way that we're, pushing the boundaries for our brands is doing it for the right reasons.
Definitely, I completely agree. And Jane, just coming to you on that, I know you touched on artificial intelligence earlier, but can you talk about how the music industry can be using that and what makes it really exciting for artists?
I think there is a certain element of handing control over to fans and users. So a user that isn't a fan is a potential fan. And if you give them a way to be closer to an artist, you give them a way to understand that artist better. So if you can give a fan an AR effect that they can play with, that maybe uses AI, maybe doesn't, but just allows them to be closer, you build a stronger bond. The why, I think, is really interesting, because we created a suite of AR effects to shoot a music video through, not because we thought it was a cool gimmick to sort of play with, but because we felt that would then give fans, they had 5 AR effects that meant they could recreate the music video, and it meant there was a back and forth. So we shot everything on phones. Then when we released it through Instagram stories, and then once we'd released the first kind of edit, fans could use the music sticker, record their own version with the AR effect, and then tag Mark Ronson or King Princess, and then we could create a whole new version of the music video that had fans in it. And then they feel part of the process. They understand how a music video can be made for a lot less money than your standard kind of big label budget. But so it was kind of about interacting with the fans, but also about the democratization of production, which I think is a huge opportunity because you've got tools that are accessible. You've got agencies that are smaller and more nimble and can give you what you need or what you want for a lot less than a traditional kind of video director would.
Amazing. And Sophie, as coming from a label side, with everything with the metaverse to all the new platforms popping up, do you feel like there's a lot of pressure for artists and managers to be across all platforms and jumping on all these new trends in the metaverse?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like every year there's a new thing that people just want to really attach themselves to, which I totally understand why, because you do want to feel like you're ahead of the curve and you're always behind the new thing that's in place. But I always kind of tell our artists, like think about it, think about why you want to go on a certain platform. But also I always try to say don't feel pressure to tick everything, because some artists genuinely are just really, really solid on 2 or 3 platforms or 1 platform. And that's where all their audience is as well. So we try to just say to them, like, we get it, and if you want to do something, we'll look into it, but just focus on, where you're really, really good at and where your fans sit, because ultimately that's what's going to get your music everywhere, rather than just kind of half-heartedly doing 1 platform because you feel you need to, but doesn't really work. So that's kind of how we tackle things like that.
And do you think there's any opportunity for creators to kind of come in there and help with that? I know, Jane, you also had some lovely thoughts on this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like we were having a conversation earlier about creators, there's the influencer side of it, which obviously from my side, we look at it quite a lot across, Instagram, we look at it on TikTok, and there's always that collaborative approach to that. But then there is also the creative form of, people creating assets for you, or you working with videographers to follow you around. I think that there's a massive, I think if you had someone like, for instance, we always try to get videographers or try to encourage our artists to film as much as they can, because in terms of, developing your brand and developing everything around that, the more you can get and the more you can collaborate and create content, the stronger your brand will essentially be at the end of it.
Yeah, I think the maker creator is a really interesting field, because you've got Spark AR creators who can make you an AR effect. You've got digital animators who can create assets, but then you've got videographers or just people who have a certain aesthetic. And I think there's a really interesting playing field as an artist. Like some of the artists that I've worked with, you talk to them, and I find it really, really baffling, because they're quite introverted in day-to-day life, and they don't want to share every second of their day on social platforms. And yet, if they can find a creator that shares their kind of ideals and their ethos and has a really nice and clear vision of how they would want to portray that artist, it's easier for them to trust someone to create that for them. And we were talking about this idea of up-and-coming artists that might be a bit introverted, but having up-and-coming makers and finding a way for them to work together to kind of help each other rise up together. I've said together about 6 times. And just create something where they both benefit.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of the feedback kind of coming through in the industry is there's so much pressure to build a TikTok, a reel, everything else, that actually you can forget that an artist often, their creation is music, whereas you have the kind of influencers who are on the platforms where Instagram, TikTok is all they've ever known, and it's what they're good at. So I definitely say if you can find ways to collaborate with the creators, to really kind of take that heavy lifting where that's their expertise, it can really help to kind of balance that as well. And Ali, coming to you, with all of the kind of pressure around all these up-and-coming technologies, what is the most important thing from a tech perspective that someone can take into account?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of reiterate what I said earlier and concentrate a lot on the why. There are a lot of experiences that might potentially be great for one industry, but not for another. I think, with the car industry, for example, VR works brilliantly for that, because if you're not able to get into a car shop, putting a headset on and being able to explore a certain make or model of a car in VR is great. I think with music and the music industry, because music can be, the background to what another activity that you're doing, it wouldn't make sense to build necessarily a VR experience for something while someone's trying to cook dinner and listening to music in the background. But the VR side of things can work really well if you're a super fan, creating a behind the scenes experience where you're watching your favorite artist film or record their album. You've got someone, creating 360 videos of that, and you can really explore the process that someone's gone through for that. I think it's great, but I think we just, again, you've got to, it's kind of case by case basis, and you just have to make sure that whatever the ask is, you've really, really investigated, what the ultimate outcome for that artist is, what their fans want, have they kind of explored who their fans are and what kind of content they want to see, and then I think you build on it from there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's also important to know of, before you kind of jump to the finish line, of really getting the basics right in terms of the content you're putting out there already, your Instagram stories, your reels, whatever it may be. And coming to you, Jane, of course, not all artists are signed or have these big label marketing budgets to play with, and organic content really does play a bigger role there. Can you talk about kind of focusing on your essence and how to really kind of nail your organic content that you're putting out?
Yeah, so I think the last 5 years that I've been working with Vanessa, who is the client partner at Meta, I've used the word essence about 4 million times, because every artist needs to understand their brand or their essence. And I think the authenticity that you need to bring to any organic content, if you're trying to pretend to be someone you're not every day, it becomes really draining. Whereas if you can find the essence of what you want to share with your fans, how much of yourself you're willing to share, like where your boundaries are, that's your little sort of essence bubble. And I think it's really important, because then fans understand where the boundary is, but they understand who you are, and it is authentic. Because if you're sharing something because you think you should, it soon becomes very apparent, and people don't really then know who you are, and it's harder to maintain a long-term relationship. Like a marriage, I guess. Don't put too much makeup on every day. Just like once every 2 years, that's what I do. But yeah, I just think it's really important to find your essence and then share it very authentically.
And Sophie, maybe coming to you, is there anyone on the 3Beat roster or outside of the roster that you think does really well at kind of getting their essence across?
Yeah, I mean, we've got one up and coming artist. He's actually based in Liverpool. He's called Michael Aldag, and some of you might know his TikTok. He's a Scouse guy, and he does these comedy sketches, and that's where he came from. And then we realised he's actually an amazing singer and performer as well. But he absolutely nails his content. He's done it. He's created formats where as soon as he posts something, it's him, because it's always his face. His formatting is the same. His sketches, they're all in the same way. And then when it comes to his music, he's really, really honed. He's like really focused in on, how he wants to present himself across everywhere. And yeah, I think he's just really, really good. And he gets his audience, because his audience is quite Gen Z. So he leans in on things that he knows that they're focusing on as well. Yeah, I mean, in terms of other people outside of 3B, I think Mimi Webb recently is really...
I was just thinking of Mimi Webb.
She's really, really good. She's relentless at her socials across the board. Like I was, even on release weeks, I think her last single, I was looking actually on her across all of her socials, and I think on release day, she posted, I think, like 5 times on main feed, and people, they're a bit like, oh, I wouldn't do that, but she she knows exactly how to sell her music. She's relentless at it.
Yeah, I think one of the nice things about how she blew up is that she'd post these videos where she's got her mum or a friend in the car and she's gone through a breakup with someone and she's like, Mum, I've written this song about it. What do you think? And she's filming like her family's first reactions to it, which feels really authentic to actually see. And another example that I loved was, of course, Adele, when she just went live on Instagram and she had no clue what she was doing. And usually you'd, of course, kind of filter the questions coming through, but she just read them all out, no matter how wild they were. So I love seeing that from her. And one thing to point out, going back to kind of the metaverse, if someone did want to kind of go away and go into build an AR effect, how could you go about doing that if you didn't necessarily have a label behind you? Could you go onto the Spark AR network?
So super easy. Super easy to start. I'm not going to, it's obviously like anything. If you want to be really good at it, you need to work hard. But there is a Spark AR website. You can download the software. It's free. And there's tutorials for absolutely everything. So I have a 2-year-old, and when I was on maternity leave, I've felt like I was probably falling behind with the rest of my team. So I decided that I wanted to make an AR effect. So I went in, obviously a slight head start because I was a designer at some point in my career, so easy there. But I watched an hour's tutorial and I made an AR effect that was a face mask. Obviously, maybe slightly narcissistic because it was a face mask of lots of my own face on my face. But it took me an hour. It wasn't like slick and beautiful, but it is easy to get started. And there's a bunch of different Spark AR creators that you can follow that help you to understand. So you can follow the Spark AR account. There's also an AR creator called Dan Moller, and he basically does all of the trainings. He's also our colleague, so I find that slightly weird because it's whenever you speak to a Spark AR creator, apparently he's like God.
He is. He is. But there's a kind of like university blueprint that you can use, which teaches you everything, which is pretty cool. I haven't used it yet. I should. Yeah.
Amazing. And Sophie, with everything and all of the opportunities coming up, what's the kind of high priority for you this year with your artists?
I think for us, it's like trying to really focus on their online presence, and just because we've got at the moment, for the rest of the year, we've got a lot of development artists that we're working with, and they are some of their phases. Some of them are literally just starting out. Some of them, they're working towards their first album. But I think for us, it's just really focusing on who they are, how they want to portray themselves, and how they get that side of them across to their fans as they bring more people in. That's going to be our focus, I think.
And have you found that has changed in the last 2 years when everyone had time to sit at home and create content, so that like live gigs coming back?
Yeah, 100%. I think when lockdown happened, all of a sudden my emails went through the roof because no one really knew what to do aside from go on, online. But I think you have to kind of strike that balance now because, our artists, they are going back out on tour. And if we say, oh, have you thought about doing this or this? This could fit really well. And, they are busy. So we also suggest to them as well, if you've got a format you really like or you've got some thoughts, why don't you, if you've got a free day, bank some content, and then it takes the pressure off them to feel every day they have to think of something. So that's one thing we kind of try to work with them on as well.
Yeah, I think it's really important to try and balance actually kind of carving out that time to create content and then coming back to it later. Jane, what is your areas of focus for the year ahead?
To understand NFTs more, because let's be honest, nobody understands them. But then I think to build a framework where we can create a creative framework where up-and-coming artists can work with creators to kind of ease the burden of potentially social media fatigue, of feeling that need to be everywhere, but finding methodologies that they can use that means that they can share enough of themselves, but in a way that they're comfortable.
Love that. And Ali?
I think for us, there's a big push on, the metaverse per se, but also so more and more trying to sort of explore experiences of building WebXR based experiences, and that is kind of using VR or building a VR experience that's not a native based app that's in Oculus. It's basically a URL that you can plug into a browser and you can experience within VR in that way, but also connect that to desktop and mobile and have then interlinked gaming experiences that connect all three. So you could have players in all three things at the same time. And it's just looking at the technologies around that. There's a lot of interest from our brands on building those WebXR type experiences, but there are lots of limitations. So it's just about exploring how we can overcome those limitations and in what way.
Of course. And where do you see those big opportunities with that for music? So in the last year or so, we've seen Billie Eilish did a concert within VR. Is there anything that you could see that maybe could come in the future through that?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed, some of the experiences that have come out in the last couple of years. We had the Travis experience in Fortnite, and then there was a sort of live streaming. I think it was only a one-person experience actually for Rita Ora with EE, looking at how 5G can work. That's really hard to do. And it was made much easier because it was basically aimed at one person, but it's about how do we increase that sort of AR live streamed volumetric captured experience, but for multiple viewers. So I think there's going to be much more of sort of investigating and looking into that sort of experience as well.
If I can add as well, I think what's interesting from a VR perspective for me is like the return experience. So as a fan, if I go to a gig and I'm experiencing something, I experience it once. I might go and watch the videos that I've undoubtedly taken and annoyed the person behind me. But in VR, because the possibilities are endless, like even if you shoot a music video in VR, you can go and shoot that music video again infinite times because the camera can be anywhere. There is no camera. You just say the camera is at this vector and it's shooting. And I think it's the same for a user because it's how many times you can experience something and immerse yourself in it and feel closer to the artist. So exploring the opportunities of that, of how you can build equity with fans long term, because you obviously can't replace live music. You can't replace smells. You can't replace someone throwing a pint and a bit of it going on your head. But you can create a different kind of experience that has a different benefit. So exploring that for me is huge.
Amazing. And if you could have one top tip or takeaway, that's a big ask, but if there's one thing that you could give as a tip for the audience to take away today, what would it be?
Should I go? I was going to say just kind of research. If you're thinking about going into one of these kind of technologies, just research around it.
Yeah.
I think metaverse is the buzzword, but I'm the first to admit I don't know everything about it. And it's something that I need to research as well. But also, like we were saying, don't be scared to ask questions as well, because it's such an insane thing that's happening at the moment. You need to actually really invest in something like that. You need to get your head around it to work out how it can actually benefit you as well.
From a practical perspective, I know you mentioned the Spark AR Instagram account earlier. Where else does anyone have any recommendations of where people could go and find out more? Anyone they perhaps follow?
I would say, rather than asking a person, you can't really talk about things like this unless you've experienced them. So I think when I first came back from maternity leave, we were working on a project that was in VR, and I was like, I don't have a VR headset. And I know it's not easy to just go, just buy one. But it's like, explore things. Like if you think you might want to explore doing something in Roblox or doing something in Horizon Worlds, or like go and play with it. Like go, like Roblox is free, just go in there, see what's happening. If there's a gig that's happening on Twitch or anywhere else, like go and have a look and explore it, because exploring would be my tip. Like just explore, because then you have a better understanding. And if you think something might be possible, it probably is. You just need to find a way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think from working together, Jane, every AR effect we've built has been an iteration on the one that we've done before. So I think gone are the days where it's just some dog ears or whatever it might be on a filter. Really go out and play. I'm going to plug a filter that we launched this week for Top Gun. So if you go to the Top Gun Instagram and have a look at it, it's a very first AR filter for a movie trailer. So definitely go out and explore more there. And Ali, what would be your top tip?
I mean, yeah, if you're interested in the technology side of things, there are always tutorials around. Like if you're not able to go and experience the actual thing and you're interested in things like, Epic Games or Unreal Engine or any types of software or technology, just Google is your friend, I think, in those respects. There are always tutorials on YouTube. There are always, practical things that you can take away and do. So I would say, yeah, just research, like Sophie was saying, ask questions. If you can find people on Facebook or Instagram that are specialists in these things, half the time they're very happy to be contacted and have people ask questions.
Also, we are your friends today. There's the networking bit later. You can ask us questions.
That's true.
I might not be able to answer them, but I'll try.
And I really loved your point around the why earlier, Ali. And I definitely think if you don't feel like right now, you might go away and think, right, well, I'm off to make an AR filter. It might not make sense for the artist or yourself that you're working with today. These technologies keep moving and evolving and more will come around, and it might make sense at a different moment. So definitely don't feel the pressure to be the first to do anything. Let someone else fail first and then do it afterwards. I'm going to wrap up in a moment. Does anyone else have any thoughts to share? Otherwise, I will welcome Kathy back on the stage.
Oh, she's gone.
She's gone. Well, thank you so much to our amazing panel. As we said, don't be a stranger. We'll be around at the networking later if you want to ask us any questions. But thank you so much.
Thank you.